So today, let's again focus on how the media help the Labor Party do its dirty work. Spinning a lie, a half-truth, or just trying to push a narrative. Well, today, the opposition said that if you work for the federal government, it is time to come back to the office. It is now the best part of, 5 years? Since all of the COVID business meant that people weren't in the office, working from home, all the rest of it. And the reality is that the federal government spends hundreds of millions of dollars on offices, and the alternative Prime Minister says if you're being paid by the taxpayer, you should also be working from the place that the taxpayer is already paying for.
Australian taxpayers who are working harder than ever under this government and barely keeping their head above water, I think they expect the government and the government employees to be working as hard as they are. And people refusing to go back to work in Canberra is not acceptable. We need an efficient delivery of government services.
Now, who would have a problem with this? Well, of course, the Labor Party, who not only has hired a football stadium worth of brand new public servants, has given all public servants their biggest pay rise in 10 years, and of course expects them all to vote for the government. Remember, the whole way that the modern left works is that they want to create a triangle of dependency, one that will cover 60, 70% of the electorate, meaning that they will always remain in power. This was the way in Queensland for the best part of 30 years. It has been the way in Victoria up until today, which is you either work for the government, so you don't want to upset them, you don't want to upset the apple cart, or you are dependent on the government when it comes to welfare, and any suggestion that you shouldn't get more than anyone else, well, that of course becomes a reason to be afraid of a change of government. Or if you're in private business, the biggest company is the government, therefore you don't want to displease the government. So we know who they're playing to here, and certainly the Canberra bubble will always vote left, will always vote hard left, often more likely to vote Green than it is to vote Labor in some parts. But look at the reaction today, how for some reason this very simple request, which is go back to where you have always worked, has been tried to be spun as some sort of attack on women, on female workers. First, the Prime Minister with an odd take on a pretty obvious suggestion that I would imagine most Australians who don't work in the public service, well, they already don't have the option of working from home, but we're just the little people, right?
The Coalition want public servants to be at home all the time, 36,000 of them, because they want to sack them. Be very clear here. So on the one hand, they're saying you can just stay at home because those additional public servants, where we've put $6 billion into clearing off those queues in Veterans Affairs, they're saying you can just stay at home.
What a surprise. The bloke who is a creature of the Canberra bubble, who has had literally no other job than for government, either as an MP or as an advisor, the one who knows that the heavily unionised people slow play the ball during conservative times of government and do exactly what this government or left-wing governments want, is of course the great champion of all things when it comes to the public service. For those of us that are paying for the public service, we want fewer public servants, we want more simplicity, we want people actually involved in services rather than sitting behind computer says no. But as for this gender garbage, and this got a run in much of the media today, Katie Gallagher, who of course represents the ACT, where the business is the public service.
I mean, they've now said working from home's, going to be cancelled. They don't have women's interests at heart. On the working from home, can I just say on this, clearly the opposition have no idea about how modern working families operate.
Seriously? You want to talk about people who have no idea how modern working families work, which is that most jobs require somebody to leave the house. Now, yes, it's okay if you can find a way to maybe Monday, maybe Friday, and I understand if you're involved in all of that, fair enough. But the idea that when you work for the government that you don't have to go to the office, because you see what these people don't understand is all of the private businesses that are affected by people not going into the office. You know, all those coffee shops, for the days you do go into the office, they need 7 days worth of trade. All of the ancillary businesses from, the lowly cleaners all the way through to the people working in the private sector, they need as many people in the cities as possible. Our mate Nicholas Rees, of course, runs a city that needs as many people in the city as possible for the city to not just be revitalised, but to have an economy that actually means there are options when you go into the city on the weekend. You see, these people don't get that. They don't care because they fly at the front end of the plane, they don't pay for anything, and they are more than happy for this triangle of dependency that I was mentioning before. But before we start suggesting that this is somehow an attack on women and the demand of going back to the office is some knuckle-dragging right-wing position, do they know that the Governor of California, card-carrying super lefty, he wants everyone back in the office? Oh, no, but it's all about Peter Dutton. And, of course, it's all code for the Liberal Party has a problem with women. Well, guess who actually has a problem with women? And it seems like until people are reminded that they have a problem with the Liberal Party, that when people just judge a government on its actions or lack of actions, or see the difference between strong leadership and weak leadership, that people, well, they move their vote away from Labor. Today, the essential poll in the Turnbull Times, The Guardian, was released today, and it shows that the male vote, 37 to 31, but guess what? The Labor Party has fewer votes with women than the Liberal Party does right now. In fact, according to the primary vote, when it comes to women, compared for men, 31-37, it is now 28-35. Oh no, but apparently it's the Liberal Party who has a problem with women. No, right now, the Labor Party seems to have a problem with women, but shh, don't tell anyone. And the fact that the media can't be bothered even checking the polls that are released today before running garbage like that. And then there's the second part of this, where Anthony Albanese, of course, desperately would love to pretend that Peter Dutton is the Aussie version of Donald Trump. And the majority of Australians don't like Donald Trump, so therefore they're not going to vote for Peter Dutton. But of course he can't say that out loud, because if he goes after Donald Trump, well, we know how Donald Trump is going to respond. And right now I think we're trying to get an exemption when it comes to things like trade tariffs. Of course, much of the defence of this country comes out of, frankly, the kindness of the United States, while governments like his, that have more tax coming in than ever before, spend most of their money on welfare rather than defence. Have a look at how Anthony Albanese is trying to play 4D chess, sending simple messages that Dutton is Trump.
No, we don't have to adopt all of America's policies. What we have here from Peter Dutton is that he's so policy lazy, him and his team, that they just, if they hear something, you know, on the news, an announcement from overseas about sacking public servants or people working from home, or DEI, you know, the dreaded inclusion policy that they're so worried about, they say, yeah, I'll have some of that.
I don't know if you guys can replay that grab, but with no sound while I make this point. Feel free, if we can, technically, tell me if I can't in my ear. I'm just coming up with an idea here live on the TV. Do you see how unimpressed the people behind the Prime Minister are? Look at the Premier of New South Wales, a proper leader going, geez, really? I've got to stand behind this bloke? And the other guy going, what? What's the point you're trying to make? Well, of course, before Donald Trump was re-elected as the 47th President of the United States, they thought he would never return. They thought the Trumpian politics was so terrible that they could make reference to it when the majority of the country was turning against his government when it came to The Voice. So this is just the same thing, but being said in a different way.
I fear that the No campaign are importing American-style Trump politics to Australia. Its aim is to polarise people, and its weapon of choice is misinformation.
She's still a Member of Parliament, by the way. Still a Member of Parliament.